My dad barely looked up when I handed him the box. I'd flown in from Austin to visit over the weekend, a quiet attempt at connection, my arms full of things I thought might earn their pride. My mother sat in her usual spot, flipping through her phone, probably halfway into a DIY garden blog she'd never actually followed through on. He took the box like it was an obligation, not a surprise. When he opened it and saw the glint of metal, he raised a brow. "Is this real?" "Yeah," I said, trying not to sound too eager. "Rolex. Thought you'd—" "I have a phone. Why do I need this?" he muttered, pulling it from the velvet cushion like it was too heavy to be worth the effort. "This is too much, Ethan. You should be saving your money, not throwing it away on vanity." Throwing it away. I don't know what stung more, his dismissal or how unsurprised I was by it. My mom offered a dry, "It's nice," but didn't look up from her screen. No smile. No warmth. I just thought it might be something you'd appreciate, I said, standing there stupidly with nothing left to offer. "You're not a kid anymore," he said. "You don't have to keep buying our love, you know? It's not how the world works." That word, buying, it crawled under my skin and stayed there. I left a few hours later, under the excuse of an early Monday meeting. As I walked to my car, I felt like I was dragging a version of myself I didn't want to be anymore. The obedient son. The one who kept knocking on a door that never opened. I slid into my BMW, stared at the wheel, and exhaled slowly. There was one place I knew might make me feel okay. Ellie's Diner, just off Route 52, a classic American-style spot with worn red booths, checkered floors, and the same jukebox that had been broken for a decade. It had been my quiet place since high school. I used to come here after swim meets, drenched and starving, ordering the same greasy cheeseburger and shaking chlorine from my hair. It smelled like bacon and burnt coffee and nostalgia. But this time, every booth was taken. Except one. An older man, maybe mid-50s, sat alone by the window, nursing a black coffee. I hesitated before walking up. "Mind if I sit?" I asked. He glanced at me, then gestured to the seat across. "Rough day." I nodded. "You've got that look," he said. Eyes full of disappointment. "I've got 365 of those a year." I let out a short laugh despite myself. "Yeah, something like that." He introduced himself as Ray, just Ray. Wore a patched denim jacket, a scruff of a beard, and a look like life had taught him everything the hard way. I asked if he came here often. "Every night," he said. "They keep the coffee hot and the judgment cold." We talked. About everything. About nothing. About how his family had written him off when he lost his business, how the only soul who waited at home now was his mutt of a dog, Waffles, named for her obsession with stealing breakfast off the counter. "She's old, loud, and smells like stale popcorn," he said proudly. "But she's my girl." I paid for his meal. He didn't ask. I didn't explain. It just felt right. I didn't expect to see Ray again. Honestly, I figured it was a one-off moment. Two lonely people crossing in the night, bonded for an hour by weak coffee and burnt toast. But something about that evening stuck with me. Not the words, necessarily. The silence between them. The way Ray never asked for anything but gave something anyway presents. So when I returned to Ellie's the following week, part of me scanned the booths without even realizing I was looking for him. And there he was. Same seat, same cup of coffee, same tired denim jacket. This time, though, he wasn't alone. At his feet was a squat, tan dog with one ear that flopped sideways and a tail that wagged like it had its own power source. "Waffles," I guessed. She looked up at me and let out a low, guttural burp, then sneezed. Ray looked over and cracked a smile. Well, thought you bailed." "I don't bail," I said, sliding into the seat across from him. "Just refuel." Waffles crawled over, snorted at my boot, then laid her chin on my foot like we'd known each other for years. "She approves," Ray said. "You're in." We talked again. Not out of politeness, but ease. I told him more about my job, how the IT firm I joined was scaling fast, how I kept getting raises but still felt like I hadn't made it. I said it half joking, but Ray nodded like he understood too well. "That's the thing with people like us," he said. "We build entire lives around proving someone wrong. Trouble is, we forget what winning's supposed to look like." I stared at my drink, the carbonation fizzing quietly. My parents always said they were preparing me for the real world. Thing is, the real world's been kinder. Ray chuckled dryly. "Yeah, at least the real world lets you sit down without making you feel like a burden." He told me about losing his company during a recession, how his kids blamed him for everything: bankruptcy, foreclosure, even the divorce. Said they stopped calling, stopped inviting. At some point, he stopped hoping. Family, he said, is just a word people use when they don't want to admit they've given up on you. Waffles farted loudly beneath the table. Neither of us acknowledged it. We just kept talking. He asked if I still saw my folks often. Once a year, maybe, I said. Mostly to be reminded that I still disappoint them. Ray raised his cup and mocked toast. To disappointments. May we learn to disappoint better people next time. I laughed, really laughed, loud enough to draw a glance from the server. When the check came, I reached for it again. This time, Ray stopped me. Split it, he said. I've still got pride, just no income. Fair enough. As we walked out into the cold night air, Waffles trotted between us like she was keeping pace for the group. I paused near my car, uncertain if I should say anything else. Ray beat me to it. See you around, Ethan? Yeah, I said. You will. Driving home, I realized something. I hadn't checked my phone once during dinner. No notifications, no silent hopes for a message from my parents. No craving for approval that always left me empty. I'd just been, and that felt like the closest thing to peace I'd known in a long time. We started to make it a thing, though we never called it that. Tuesday nights. Sometimes Thursdays. Unspoken, unplanned, but consistent. I'd show up at Ellie's and find Ray already there, or vice versa. We didn't text. Didn't need to. It was like we'd synced into the same rhythm, 2 clocks, finally ticking in time with someone. Waffles was always with him, naturally. She became part of the scenery. Most of the staff knew her name by now, and she'd taken to greeting each regular like she ran the joint. Half the time, she'd knock over the sugar caddy trying to hop into the booth. Once, she barked at her own reflection in the napkin dispenser for 5 minutes straight. No one batted an eye. One night, I brought pie from a bakery across town, apple crumble, Ray's favorite, I'd remembered. He didn't say anything when I set it down between us, but he gave me a long look before slicing into it. You always this thoughtful? He asked, mouthful. No, I said. Just didn't want you getting stuck with diner apple again. Careful, he warned. You're starting to sound like someone who cares. I smirked. Maybe I do. That night, the topic shifted. We talked about regrets, not the melodramatic kind, but the little, quiet ones. I admitted I'd never told my parents how much it hurt when they brushed me off. That I always thought if I just did more, gave more, they'd finally see me. You think they ever will? Ray asked gently. No, I said. And for the first time, I didn't feel ashamed about it. He nodded. Took me 10 years to stop writing birthday cards to people who never sent one back. Silence settled between us again, not awkward. Comfortable. Like an exhale after years of holding breath. Waffles let out a sudden groan from under the booth, stretched her legs, then farted audibly and rolled onto her side like she'd dropped the mic. I laughed so hard I cried. Ray wiped his eyes, not from laughter, just quietly moved. She's disgusting, he said. But she's loyal. Same could be said for me, I replied. The joke hung in the air a second too long, because we both knew it wasn't really one. I had spent most of my life being loyal to people who never earned it. Always reaching, always giving. But this, sitting across from someone who showed up without strings, who never asked me to be more than I was, this was loyalty returned. Mutual. Later that night, I drove home without music. I used to always fill the silence. Podcasts. Playlists. Anything to distract from my thoughts. But now the quiet wasn't scary. It was mine. And something about it told me. This was no longer just a phase. This was the beginning of something worth keeping. The weather had turned colder that week, frost on the windows by morning, the kind of chill that crept into your bones and stayed. Ellie's felt warmer somehow, not just because of the heat or the coffee, but because it was becoming ours. Waffles greeted me with a sneeze to the shin and promptly took up her usual post under the table. She had developed a routine: inspect the floor for forgotten fries, roll on her back until someone scratched her belly, then snore through the rest of the evening. Tonight, she brought a limp plush duck with half its stuffing gone. She dropped it at my feet like tribute. She's courting you, Ray said dryly. You should feel honored. I pretended to bow. I accept her love. I hope she accepts my offering. I handed over half a mozzarella stick. Waffles snatched it with surprising speed, then began chewing it like she was solving a puzzle. Ray chuckled, then leaned back with a satisfied sigh. You know, when I first started coming here, I thought I was just passing time. Figured it was better than drinking alone. You were wrong, I said. He raised an eyebrow. You weren't passing time. You were waiting. For what? I shrugged. Maybe just someone who'd notice. Ray went quiet. Then, funny. I used to think that if you disappeared and nobody noticed, it meant you didn't matter. And now I think it means you're around the wrong people. That landed heavier than either of us admitted. We didn't talk about family much that night. We didn't have to. Instead, we spoke about stupid things. Favorite road trip snacks. Terrible first jobs. The worst movie either of us had ever paid money to see. For the record, mine was a 3-hour pirate drama that somehow had no ships. I learned that Ray used to coach his son's Little League team, that he once built a treehouse by hand, that he used to be the guy who brought donuts into the office every Friday without fail. Didn't fix anything, he said. But people smiled. That was enough for a while. I told him how I used to leave notes for my parents on birthdays, anniversaries, even random Wednesdays. Handwritten reminders that I loved them. They never said anything back. Just silence, or worse, a dismissive nod. Guess I thought if I gave enough, I muttered, they'd eventually give something back. Ray looked at me carefully. Did they? No. But now I give differently. That was the quiet shift. Not a lightning bolt. Just a calm realization. I didn't need to stop being generous. I just needed to stop giving where it turned into dust. When we left that night, I noticed something taped to the wall by the register. A bulletin board, pinned with old Polaroids and local flyers. Between a coupon for dog grooming and a missing cat notice, someone had scrawled in Sharpie. Sometimes strangers save you one cup of coffee at a time. Ray saw it too. Didn't say anything. Just clapped me on the back once. Solid, steady, and opened the door so Waffles could lead the way into the cold. The call came during lunch. My phone buzzed 5 times before I noticed, face down on my desk. Mom, the screen read. I stared at it like it might bite. I hadn't heard from her in nearly 4 months, not since I sent them a holiday gift they never acknowledged. And here she was, middle of a Thursday, calling me like it was normal. I let it ring out. 3 minutes later, she called again. This time I answered. Ethan, she said, clipped and breathless. I need your help. Your father's truck broke down. He's out near Dayton. He left his wallet at home. Can you wire money to the tow company? I blinked. Hi, Mom. I'm good. Thanks for asking. A beat of silence. Well, are you going to help or not? The gall. No warmth. No concern. No acknowledgement of absence. Just expectation. I'm at work, I said flatly. This is your father, she snapped. Don't be difficult. I sent you both a gift card for groceries 2 months ago, I said. You never said a word. She exhaled sharply. Are we keeping score now? I guess I just thought, I said slowly, if you were ever going to call me again, it'd be for something else. Something that sounded less like a transaction. I don't have time for this, she said. I'll call your cousin. The line went dead. I stared at the phone for a long time after. That evening, I went straight to Ellie's. Ray was already there, his hand curled around a mug, Waffles passed out under the table, snoring with her tongue half out. He looked up. You look like someone kicked your soul. Family call, I muttered, sliding into the booth. Ray nodded, didn't pry. I told him anyway. Not because I needed advice, just because I knew he'd get it. He didn't say much. Just sipped his coffee, let the silence hold space. After a while, he leaned back. You know what sucks about people like us? We keep trying to earn something that should have been given for free. I let out a hollow laugh. That's exactly it. She'll call again, he added. They always do. And it'll sound just like this one. Then what do I do? He shrugged. You decide whether you're a wallet or a son, and then you stop letting them choose for you. Waffles stirred, scooted over, and flopped her head onto my foot with a heavy sigh. Like she agreed. You ever think we're just the leftovers? I asked. Ray smiled faintly. Leftovers feed people, too. Sometimes better than the first course. There it was again, his knack for saying something that lived between a joke and a revelation. We ate in peace that night. I didn't check my phone again. As we left, Ray paused by the door. You know, I don't think we're healing, he said. I turned to him, surprised. I think we're just finally living without asking permission. And somehow, that felt even better. Ray didn't show up that Tuesday. Or Wednesday. By Thursday, I stopped pretending I wasn't worried. He'd missed once before, work at the shelter, he'd said, but this was different. No warning. No diner. No waffles. Just a gaping hole in my week where quiet comfort used to be. I stopped by the animal shelter on Westbrook Avenue where he occasionally fixed the router or brought by bags of donated kibble. The woman behind the counter, Janice, I think her name was, recognized me. You're the one who always brings him the fancy muffins, she said with a half-smile. Guilty, I said. Have you seen Ray lately? Her smile faded. He called in sick. First time in a year. My chest tightened. Did he say what was wrong? She shook her head. Just said he was feeling off. That's Ray for you. Keeps the details close. I thanked her and left, heart pounding. By nightfall, I was parked outside the small one-story home Ray always claimed. Wasn't much, but came with solid plumbing. The porch light was off. Waffles barked once from inside. That was all the confirmation I needed. I knocked. No answer. I knocked again. Ray? It's Ethan. A long pause. Then the door opened, just enough for his tired face to peek through. You look like hell, I said gently. Feel worse, he admitted. Why didn't you call? Didn't want to ruin your week. I held up a plastic bag. Chicken soup. And dog biscuits. Let me in. He didn't argue. The place was modest, clean, quiet, scattered with signs of a life half-lived. An old recliner. Dog toys. Books stacked on a wobbly side table. Waffles ran up, tail whipping like a metronome, and leapt onto the couch with all the grace of a flying bowling ball. Ray lowered himself into the recliner with a wince. Flu or something, he muttered. Just needed to ride it out. I heated the soup, poured 2 mugs of tea, sat with him while he coughed and Waffles snored. We didn't say much. Didn't have to. At some point, Ray looked over at me. You didn't have to come. I know, I said. But I wanted to. He nodded. That was all. After a while, he dozed off in the chair. Waffles curled up against my leg. I leaned back, the quiet wrapping around us like a blanket. And I realized this was the first time I had shown up for someone without needing anything in return. Not approval. Not praise. Not proof that I mattered. Just care. Just presence. It felt right. Before I left, I wrote a note and taped it to his fridge. When you're back on your feet, dinner's on me. And Waffles gets her own burger this time. I let myself out quietly. The night air was cold, but not harsh. I stood on the porch for a moment, staring up at the stars. No audience. No expectations. Just a feeling I hadn't known in years. That maybe, just maybe, I wasn't the broken one after all. Ray was back at the diner the next Tuesday, leaner, still pale, but upright. The bell above the door jingled, and when I looked up and saw him, I smiled without even realizing I was doing it. He held the door for Waffles, who barreled in like she was reclaiming her kingdom, then trotted over to the same booth we always took, spinning 3 times before flopping onto the seat next to me like a person. You let her sit up now? I asked. She's earned it, Ray said, easing into the other side. How you feeling? Like someone ran me over and then reversed just to be sure, he grinned. But better. The server, Kayla, who now knew our order by heart, brought us coffees and a free slice of cherry pie for the comeback. Ray picked at the crust, then reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded flyer. Found this on the bulletin board, he said, sliding it over. Thought you might find it interesting. I glanced down. It was for a local nonprofit, a tech mentorship group for underprivileged teens. They were looking for volunteers with coding experience. Flexible hours. No teaching degree required. Just patience and lived experience. I raised an eyebrow. You thinking about doing this? Ray shrugged. Wasn't. But then I thought, maybe it'd be nice. Showing up for someone else. And you brought this to me because... He met my eyes. Because I'm not doing it alone. I stared at the flyer again, heart thudding softly. This wasn't just a suggestion. It was an invitation. An opening. I haven't taught anyone since college, I admitted. You taught me, Ray said. Waffles let out a sharp bark, possibly in agreement or protest at being left out of the conversation. We sat with it for a while, the flyer between us like a contract made of second chances. I'd be scared, I said. Ray nodded. Me too. I don't know if I'm good at showing up for people. You showed up for me. That stopped the conversation dead in its tracks. Not because it was dramatic, but because it was true. A few minutes later, as we stood to leave, Kayla waved us over. Ray, she said, someone dropped this off for you earlier. Said you helped fix their nephew's computer a few weeks back. She handed him a paper bag with a note stapled to the front. Thank you. You made him feel smart. That matters more than you know. Ray stared at the note like it was written in another language. After a long pause, he folded it carefully, almost reverently, and tucked it into his jacket pocket. Outside, the air was brisk but not biting. Waffles trotted ahead, leash dragging loosely behind her. Ray walked a step slower than usual. I matched his pace. You know what's funny, he said. What? I used to think no one noticed me. Now I think I was just hiding in plain sight. I didn't answer. Just kept walking beside him. because this time, I didn't need to fix anything. I just needed to stay. The following week, we stood outside the library's community center, flyer in hand, and stared at the door like it was the entrance to something much bigger than we'd prepared for. I haven't been this nervous since my first job interview, I muttered. Ray chuckled beside me. You think these kids are going to eat us alive? Probably. Good, he said. Let's give them indigestion. Inside, the room smelled like dry erase markers and too many bag lunches. For mismatched folding tables formed a square, and at least a dozen teens hovered around computers, laughing, arguing about code, racing through lines of logic like their lives depended on it. A woman named Meredith greeted us. You the two from Ellie's diner? I blinked. Word travels fast. Small town, she grinned. Plus, your friend here is famous for fixing half the laptops in this room. Ray shrugged like it wasn't a big deal. But I noticed the small shift in his shoulders, less burden, more pride. She handed us each a volunteer badge. Waffles, naturally, was allowed to stay after some quick paperwork and a lecture about not eating USB drives. We didn't teach much that first day. Mostly we listened, helped untangle error messages, told them about how we screwed up our first projects. They laughed at us. We laughed with them. At one point, one of the boys, quiet, head down, asked me if I ever felt like I was never going to be good enough at this stuff. I looked him straight in the eye. Every day. That's how I know I'm learning. He nodded slowly. Waffles licked his elbow. It was gross and perfect. Later that night, we ended up back at Ellie's. Same booth. Same cracked vinyl. Same waitress, Kayla, who brought us 2 coffees and a bowl of whipped cream for Waffles, because she's the only one with manners. Ray pulled out the note from the tech center flyer and unfolded it next to his mug. He stared at it for a while, then folded it again and slipped it into his coat. I used to think I was done, he said quietly. Not just with people. With me. I looked at him. And now? I asked. Now I think maybe I was just on hold, waiting for the right moment to come off mute. He raised his cup toward me. The second lives. I clinked mine against his. Waffles snorted, curled into a ball between us, and let out a sound like a balloon deflating. We both laughed. Before we left, I took a napkin from the holder and scrawled something in thick blue ink. Then I folded it and slid it into the crack between the booth cushions. Ray gave me a look. What was that? Just a reminder. Of what? That this table saved my life. He didn't ask anything else. He didn't need to. We walked out into the night, 3 weird souls against the wind. And for once, I wasn't running from anything. Not rejection. Not silence. Not myself. Because I had a place to return to. And maybe, for the first time in my life, people to return with.